So as I've been studying nascent entrepreneurs, those who are pursuing an idea and hoping to turn that into some sort of venture reality, I realized that as humans, we are social beings. And as a result, we're interacting with one another on a regular basis. And entrepreneurs are not alone. In fact, almost 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs have some sort of connection with others as they start their businesses. And my question that motivated me to pursue this piece of research is, under what conditions and to what extent do entrepreneurs collaborate with one another, and to what extent do their experiences, especially in employment, before starting their businesses, make an impact on how they form those collaborations? And from an academic standpoint, the conceptual question is, to what extent are individuals, the entrepreneurs, imprinted and socialized by their occupational backgrounds so that they take with them attributes of their occupation and their employment experiences when they start their new businesses. Let's say you are in you have a retail background and you interact with customers on a regular basis. And so a lot of your job is about socializing with one another. It could be with customers, it could be with employees, it could be with other managers. And so a lot of your work involves that kind of one-on-one or potentially one-to-many interactions. And the question is, does that kind of characteristic in the occupation that you came from or are currently in as you start your ventures affect the way you think about working with others when you start the ventures down the road? So in this study, we used a random sample of nascent entrepreneurs from the U.S. The data come from the panel study of entrepreneurial dynamics, PSED2, and this sample was collected in 2005. We have over 1,000 nascent entrepreneurs in our data, and we conducted a quantitative analysis looking at experience and different types of experience, specifically industry experience and startup experience and occupational experience, and analyzed whether or not those attributes had any bearing on the types of collaborations and the number of collaborators that they had in starting their businesses. We also merged in data from the Department of Labor, and specifically we used the data set called ONET, which stands for the Occupational Information Network. And in this data set, we were able to use attributes of the occupations themselves that helped us to get a more fine-grained assessment of what people did in their jobs. And by using those attributes, we were able to test our conjectures about whether certain characteristics of an occupation were associated with the number of collaborators that they worked with in their new ventures. You can think of perhaps a CEO or a manager of a department in an established company. You have people in those occupations who are working with other people. They're delegating responsibilities to their staff or working with other employees in an oversight role. They may also have responsibilities that are more analytical in nature, since they are responsible for managing budgets or solving strategic problems or devising marketing plans that require them to do a certain set of problem solving or require problem solving skills, or using their analytical backgrounds to conduct the work that is expected of their responsibilities. So the highlights of what we found are as follows. First, that experience does matter in the number of collaborators that entrepreneurs have when they start their businesses. Specifically, we found that industry experience, those individuals with significant industry experience in the areas where they are going to compete, were less likely to collaborate with others. And the explanation there is that they already have significant know-how and awareness of the competitive environment and the problems that they're trying to resolve in their new ventures. And so at the early stages, they're less likely to depend on others for assistance. However, if you're in an occupation that involves a lot of interaction, so what we call interactive occupations in the study, then you're more likely to work with others and collaborate with others. If you're coming from an occupation that depends on face-to-face interactions with other colleagues or coworkers, or interacting with customers or suppliers or other parties related to your work, you're carrying those kinds of characteristics into the new ventures that you're starting and replicating and mimicking those kinds of behaviors. And then lastly, what we found is that if someone has an occupation that has both interactive components and analytical dimensions to it, the analytical dimension actually strengthens that relationship between the interactive occupations and the number of collaborators you're working with. And the logic there is that if you're in an interactive role, as well as having an analytical requirement to the job that you're doing, most likely you are in a position where you can delegate and you can focus in on certain kinds of problem-solving responsibilities and bring together the right people to accomplish the task. And so what we found is that those entrepreneurs who have that kind of combination in their occupational experience are able to bring that to the businesses that they start as well. As the data show, and as many studies have revealed, entrepreneurs will work for somebody else before starting and venturing out on their own. Here in the U.S., the average age is in the 40s when people start their first ventures. And so that means there's considerable time working for somebody else. And the question is, if you have a desire to start a business at some point in the future, and you want to prepare yourself to have the right types of experiences to succeed when you eventually set out for yourself, consider working in environments that allow you to gain the kinds of experiences that are most valuable. And so related to our study, that might mean working in environments that are interactive, where you have to learn how to work together in a collaborative manner, teamwork, and other kinds of people skills. It could also mean working in a large company with a rotational program that allows you to experience different aspects of a company and the different kinds of ways that you can solve problems and to gain the analytical skills that will be helpful when you actually launch your ventures. Based on our research, it's vital that we really understand how people develop their experience, especially employment experience, prior to starting ventures on their own. And because most people work for somebody else before working for themselves, people can be in a position to consider the types of jobs that they want to pursue. And in the context of our study, we found benefits to working in an interactive occupation where you're dependent on, or your jobs require you to work with others and interact with others and collaborate with others, as well as analytical occupations that involve problem-solving, logical, deductive kinds of skills that are beneficial when you seek collaborations and bringing on people to help you get your ventures off the ground.